Real talk for the bold, bruised, and built to last. Welcome to the Built This Way podcast with Patricia Mullen.
Welcome back. Oh my gosh, I just listened to last week's episode. I gotta tell you, thank you so much for joining me again. I'm kind of impressed with myself, the fact that I will let you in on a little bit of a secret. Don't mix your hormones up, y'all. If you're taking them, those things are real. And this is a really, really great segue because I was talking about strategy and planning and all the things. And then I get done and my producer's like, you don't seem right. And then, of course, I'm a little snippy. I'm like, I'm fine. And later I went to look at my pill bottle and the moon was gone, which was weird because usually I take that at the evening. So there's a little lesson for you and a life tip. Watch your shit because don't mess around with your pills and your stuff especially after the sort of stuff I've been through. So with that being a segue, I really hope you enjoyed the last episode about strategy. And because of all of that, I thought I'd ask a really great friend of mine in a different time zone because he's on the West Coast to join us this morning and have more of a higher level conversation about it. And he's cool. We talk every once in a while. Former colleague of mine, and he continues to put up with me too. Seth is kind of a badass. I'll let him tell you a little bit more about him. But, I was talking about the kind of the why and strategy, and I wanted two things to happen today, and I'll just tell you this right away. One, we're going to learn things because he really knows his shit, and I feel like I know my shit. And isn't it good to benchmark yourself upon people that you feel and respect that know more than you, right? So there's that. There's the validation, but also he's just a lot of fun to hang out with. So with that, I welcome Seth Avergon.
Thank you. Well, what a lovely intro. I really appreciate that. And yeah, we're gonna have some fun today. We've been exchanging a few emails back and forth, and I looked at that and went, oh yeah, this is good. This is gonna get good.
Yeah. Well, and it was, so I have to kind of apologize to you, and then I want to share how we met. Also a great segue for my last episode, because you actually reached out to me a couple months ago to do this. And I said, yes, we're going to do it. And I pushed it. I was like, oh, we're going to do it in January. And because of just all the shit that was going on in the world and life and things, I couldn't get to just get the time and to dedication to get it to sit with you. But the other part is I'm so glad this happened now because I also didn't want to force a conversation about what we do. I feel like everybody goes on these podcasts, not everybody, but a lot of people go on podcasts and their end goal is to sell something. And I want to educate and entertain. And all those other things tend to happen organically. I feel like, even with this show, it's relationship building.
Right.
And that's what you and I have done. So real quick backstory. Last episode, I shared about how I went to Jamaica with my husband and I was sitting on the beach smoking a cigar, which was awesome. It was a Drew Estate. They're just a very sweet type of, and anyways, this guy runs up and he's like, oh my gosh, is this going to offend you? And when I'm literally smoking the same type, I was like, oh my God, that's what I smoke. And it was what happened to be a colleague or client of mine after the fact, because the next day he had someone that actually gave their resignation while we're sitting on the beach together after having drunken karaoke. And my husband, who's like the champion for me, was like, well, what does he do? Patricia does marketing. He's like, oh, graphics, blah, blah, blah. Insert our relationship because you were working with that client. And literally that's how we met. So if you had more to that, I don't mean to just take up the whole story, but that's my version.
No, it's funny because that
right after. It's just so weird that
that particular, individual had taken a job. So at that point I was working with him, but I had actually had that job that he had previously and then had left that company. And we became friends because he would call me to frankly commiserate about what he was going through. And I was the perfect person to call him. Like, I've been there. I understand what you're going through. And so we became friends. And then I started doing some consulting work with him. And then he had mentioned his vacation where he met you. I mean, it just kind of all came together beautifully. But yeah, it is a classic example of, I sometimes don't know how I'm going to utilize a person or how I'm going to work with them, what that's going to turn into, but you collect good people, right? You bring good people into your circle and you kind of just let it Maybe it's not going to happen this week, maybe not this month, maybe not even for a year, but you stay connected to these good folks and stuff just kind of happens.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about what you do because we're being kind of aloof with it. I didn't mean to be because I just kind of jumped in. I'm like, oh, strategy, Seth. Avergon Consulting. Am I saying that correctly? I am so sorry if
Oh
I
yeah,
did.
you got it. It's Avergon
Yeah.
Marketing Group is the full
Marketing
name.
group. Sorry. Blah.
Yeah.
Because you're also doing some other things, and I want to get into that too.
Sure.
Avergon Marketing Group. What do you do? You don't have to keep
I
going into it in the deep way, but it makes sense of
no
what we're.
no, that's fine. I operate a business and marketing strategy firm that I started back in 2009 because I was sitting. I was on the client side. I was working with some big brands. I had great mentors and got to really have this cool career growing up with big companies. And I kept seeing consultants coming in, and they were preaching strategy, but they weren't really willing to really roll their sleeves up and do the work. And then we had the agencies, and the agencies do all the work, but most of them don't really get into strategy too much. It's not really their thing. So I thought,
Mhm.
wow, wouldn't it be nice to have somebody who does a little bit of both? And I said, well, I guess that's going to be me since, that's what I'm seeing. So I started AMG, Avergon Marketing Group, back in '09 to meet that need. And then a few years into it, this term came into vogue, which was a fractional chief marketing officer. I'd already been doing it for about 6 years at that point. And I thought, okay, well, it'll help people understand what I do. Great. And that's what I do. I do strategy and management of tactical execution with clients.
I love it. I love it. It's like almost the opposite of what I do is why I start with strategy and everything else I do is execution. And people will hire you and think they're two one and the same. And for me, it's because I just love to do strategy. What I get paid to do is the execution. Like it really, realistically, is because smaller businesses don't necessarily have the everything in place and the infrastructure to handle those things internally. And so, whereas bigger organizations have those people or they might have the funds in place to hire those people internally, but they don't necessarily know what to do with those folks.
Right. I think that's you being a good person, frankly, because a lot of agencies would come in I'm just going to focus on the tactical, and you're being kind enough to say, well, wait a second, before we spend your money and time and resources, let's think about what the strategy is here. Otherwise, you're just running around, right? That's my mantra is strategy over tactics when I work with clients, and the reason I say that is you're wasting a lot of time and
Mm,
money and
yep.
manpower if you don't take that moment to say, what exactly are we doing here? What would success look like, right? And what's our timetable to do it? What are we trying to accomplish? Who are we going after? What does success look like? What's our timetable? What's our schedule to get it done?
And to me, that's fun. I love
Yeah.
doing that because I love the story and
Right.
I love finding solutions to things. But one, the size of the business and the timetable of that organization, and it makes a change. And so I'm going to just admit it. I have given up the fight with clients sometimes and just said, you're going to play the F round and find out game. And I'm here for you. I was not there in the making of your DNA baby. I am just here to deliver it, to make sure that it's safe when it gets here. So you do you, and I will make sure it happens because it's their baby and it's their decision and they can do whatever they want to do with it. And that's just the analogy for today, right? At the same time, yes, the ones that are the most successful, the ones that tend to be the least are not as stressed out because one doesn't seem sexy, so to say I'm going to strategize and spend money on that, and then I'm going to have a plan. And I'm just going to let it go. And one is organized-ish chaos, and it's only organized-ish if you have someone like us to help you organize it.
Right.
So yeah, and that's expensive too, right? So I'm not here to justify our jobs, but just trying to educate people about one, what it is, and you can do it for yourself. You don't necessarily need to hire someone to put together a plan. It may be the execution of that, and maybe your goal is to get to that point where, that plan's not working or you need to grow or there might be something else. But you can actually do it. It's just committing and making the time. If you're in your business and you're running it, probably don't have time to sit down and do that, baby. It's way too late. So
Right.
you need us.
Yeah.
That's just the thing. I'm thankful for it, but it's so fun to talk to somebody else that gets it. right? And
Yeah.
that's why you need to align yourself with other professionals that have the same beliefs and learn from them. I can't get any better unless I align myself with people that I want to become or that are better than me or that I can learn from. Otherwise, I'm just going to be the same old whatever. And then I'm going to be the outdated agency that, is still doing, I don't even want to say, but, if you're only doing print and those sort of things, then yeah, then that's the sort of old school
It
agency I'm referring to.
it's challenging because clients, as the cliche goes, don't know what they don't know. And so that puts you and I in a position where we have to have difficult discussions with them. And you
Yeah.
come from the heart, but you got to have challenging discussions with them because, as you said, they are working in their business, not on their business. And you've got to say, hey, I need you to come up here. I need you to think about this. And sometimes that gets uncomfortable. And
Hmm.
sometimes you have to I've had numerous discussions with clients where they say, well, we want to do this social media campaign. I'm going to pick on social media. We want to do this social media campaign. And they're an engineering firm. And I'm like, why? Tell me what you think you're going to get out of that. And that's a hard discussion for, well, everybody else is doing it. I'm like, are we going to do a dance on TikTok to promote the engineering firm? So having those kind of honest, and I don't come from a position, I try not to come from a position of being a hard ass, but you really have to come in and say, well, let's have a process of how we're going to look at things and how we're going to do things. Because the irony here is that most companies have processes around everything else, around operations and sales and this, and they get to marketing and it's just like, we're just going to throw stuff
Heads
at the
in
wall and see what
Yep.
happens.
Hmm. Yep. More times not than not, because your experience matters and you care also. And they don't know what they don't know, just like you said.
Yeah.
And so unless they're open, experienced, humble enough, they've been through it and they've been through pain. People learn through two reasons, like, time,
Yeah.
pain. Well, sometimes pain is financial pain. Then they come up and they say, well, I need to find someone that I can get this information from, and it might be online and they're doing searching for different, coaches and mentors that way. At the same time, a lot of them are just looking for a short-term win, which is why they need to do that social media campaign. Maybe they need the feels like an engineering firm. Like, why would you do a TikTok? Because you saw another company do a TikTok, right? It's
Right.
usually some sort of vanity thing or some sort of PR thing. I'm just thinking about I can't think of the name of the company, but the one that Chris Martin called out during the Coldplay concert. Was that him? Is that right? Where it was like it was by accident. They accidentally like shined on the couple that was like not
Oh,
married.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
then
remember
Gwyneth
that.
Paltrow a couple days later came out with an ad, or they did. The company that they worked for after they let them go or after they resigned.
Mhm. Yeah.
She did an ad, and that's his ex-wife. And ironically, I think they broke up because of infidelity. So they just took at it as a punch to kind of try to help save their PR. Well, in a couple weeks, no one would have remembered them anyway. Not in if you weren't in that world,
Right.
because even you're like, I can't even remember it. It happened in California, didn't it?
It was a blip, honestly. There's so much
It was just a
noise
weird
out
thing.
there. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
been a
remember
meme
seeing it
for a
and
while.
mm,
But it was just an example of an out of line, interesting firm spending a lot of money on an ad campaign with a celebrity, no less.
I'll tell you a funny story. So I'm working for a major Japanese company, and I have the CEO of that division come down to my office and say, hey, what can we do marketing wise in the next 30 days that are going to significantly stimulate sales? And so I grab my whiteboard, gotta love a good whiteboard, and start walking him through various scenarios of things we could do. And after I finished showing him the three examples, he was looking at all three. I said, here's the issue. All three of these are going to lower your margins and they're going to stimulate some immediate short-term sales, but in the long term, they're going to hurt you because you're not going to. Marketing's focus is on a long-term investment in growth, and 30 days is too short a window. And sure, I can get somebody who is going to buy 20 things over 2 months to crunch their numbers by lowering my margins into buying it all in the next 1 month, but then they're not going to buy any more the next month. I was dealing with, it was a B2B sale. So if they buy 10 units a month for 3 months, yeah, I can get them to crunch that in to, let's say, buying 20 or 30 in month 1. But then they don't buy anything for 2 months, and we just lowered our margins. So it's the reason I bring it up is it's an example of this kind of what we see with companies, with clients, is this short-term impulse, chasing dollars, squirrel kind of thinking, chasing shiny objects, instead of having that methodical, the kind of thing you do. It's like, well, okay, what are we doing? What are we gonna get from it? Are we losing margin on it if we do it that way? That kind of thinking that you bring into the equation for your clients.
Yeah, and in a way, you need both, right? So I deal with a lot of service-based industries, and it's
Yeah.
interesting because their customer base is business to customer. And I'm just
Mhm.
bringing this up because it's a different model, and it's awesome to see the difference between the two. The short-term gain and almost immediate loss on that campaign, right?
Right, right.
Versus the short-term loss, and for them, almost immediate loss when they over discount something or
Mm,
blow ads for something because they lost share in the market. So right now, Google does an awesome thing where they will actually show you because they want you to spend more money because that's what they do. And they're always changing how they do ads. And actually, one of the few changes I actually appreciate as of recent is the little thing that tells you what competitors you're able to mark or ones that you're tracking and what percentage of the market share that they are now taking over versus what you had before. So if you're lowering your budget, for example, in a time where your competitor might need that and see that and they're increasing their budget,
right, right.
Google's taking that information and they're putting it in your face. So what happens is you're going to spend more money because you're not going to let them do that. Whereas if you would have kept your margin, or if you would have kept your share to begin with and just stayed consistent, you wouldn't have had the drop and you wouldn't have had to spend all the money. And so the up and down is what becomes expensive. And it's not with, digital as much because they don't cost as, it's a different type, right? But when you're doing print, for example, which has still come to play, I'm currently working on 3 print, which is weird,
Mm,
pieces.
man.
Still, I guess 2026, but people still want things like postcards and door hangers, and I still get them.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess, yeah. And I'm in the service-based business, right? Spring is coming. But, planning these things out now is less expensive than going, "Oh, shit. It's spring. We need to do a door hanger like tomorrow."
Right.
And then you gotta figure that out because if you don't have someone like us that has graphics in place and a plan in place and knows what you're going to say, it doesn't mean that those things aren't still gonna happen. But in some businesses, well, one of two things will happen with me and weather. It's in the winter, it's not gonna be so cold, and then it's gonna get really freaking cold. And in the summer, it's gonna get warm at some point, it's gonna get really freaking hot, right?
Yeah.
So when those things happen, just being able to have that plan in place, and then when you're able to pull the trigger, you still need your strategy. You still need to be talking to your ongoing customer, right? I mean, there have been a few times where I've had to pull the trigger on really big ticket items as a customer, and I had to do it last minute because there was an emergency of some sort or something hectic. If it's a vehicle, if it's a house, in my case, if it's an HVAC system, I did that when I first moved into my last house. Right after we moved, I was writing a $7,700 check,
Yeah.
and if those people didn't have those things already in place when I needed them and they were off times, they wouldn't have gotten my business. I'm not going, "Oh, you know what? I just heard this radio ad. I really feel like today I need to spend $20,000 on this thing." You're planting that seed. The bigger the ticket item, the longer it takes
Right.
sometimes. Sometimes the decision is just overnight because actions and things happen in life. As I said also on my last episode, God, the universe, whatever it is that you believe in doesn't give a fuck about your plans. So unless you have some real estate in someone's mind or their universe or in their digital field, meaning you're talking to the right people and you're out there for when Patricia happens to need a new set gutters just got put on our house. I moved to a new town. They don't know that. They don't know that I'm here and that all of a sudden I need all these services and goods and every place that I'm going to shop and all of that, right?
Right.
And what does each family that comes into every market mean to you? And it gets nerdy, but this is why you're here, because you can talk nerdy with me and you don't think I'm being as nerdy.
Well,
It,
you're bringing up a really interesting point, which is, and this goes to part of strategy is often research, right? Okay, so what do? Well, let's map this out. What do we do first? We do some exploration, right? We do some market research. We learn about our customers and how they like to buy. And you're getting into sales cycles. And realistically, you may have a primary customer who does their due diligence, and they may have a 3 to 4 month cycle before they actually buy. And
Mhm.
then there's people like you just talked about who, oh my God, overnight, I need a new refrigerator, I need a new water heater, I need new gutters, and it has to happen now.
Mhm.
So understanding who my clients are and understanding the sales cycle helps me then map out. Then from there, I go, here's my strategy. I'm going to have this type of campaign for the immediate folks, got 24 hours, 7, ready to be at your house to give you a quote overnight. And then, of
Mhm.
course, there's the long-term ads for people who are planning out more diligently.
Yep.
So you go from exploration and curiosity and doing your market research to some form of strategy to what does the execution look like? I mean, you're nailing it perfectly. You're saying like, okay, you need to have that consistent element, and then you need to have another. That's my primary audience, and then I have a secondary audience for these guys who it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I need a new water heater, right? And I'm looking online. Yeah.
And, when for clients that, are like, oh, I don't have a budget in mind, because that's what happens. People open a business, they don't have a budget for their like marketing and things. This is 20 something years ago back in radio. I found this out, like you meet with someone and they're like, oh, I want to do advertising. Okay, well, tell me about your marketing budget, your plan. And they want you to put it together. It's like, okay, well, and what did I know back then? Nothing about it. So you're listening to your bosses and they're tell them 20%. It's like, it's like absurd or whatever. And that's just sales. And that's what happens a lot of times is smaller businesses tend to listen to those folks, right? Where larger companies and organizations have the beauty of people like yourself, right? That can sit down and map those things out and protect them almost from
Mhm.
themselves
Yeah.
in a way,
Right.
right? Because just experimenting with monies that a smaller business didn't plan for to begin with. And by a smaller business, I'm talking like 50 under, employees, right?
Right.
Because I could say under 100 employees, but that's not really a small business anyway. I mean, when you think about it, I guess
You know,
technically it is.
it's funny because people often think about me when I come in that I'm going to be spending. And there is sometimes an element of spend, but often I am stopping them from doing things.
Mhm.
I had one client who I came in on as a fractional, and then within 2 days of being there, I stopped a $15,000 ad buy that they did not need.
Mm.
And so that it's often, as you said, they don't know what they don't know, and they're probably spending in the wrong direction, and they're a little uncertain. And so coming in with that certainty and saying, "Look, let's stop all these other things. If 80% of what you're selling is to audience A, let's focus on audience A with your marketing efforts, right? Let's not
You
bother
have
with
to
the
spend those other
chasing
things.
dollars."
Yeah, and if you have the feels about them or it starts to dwindle off,
Huh,
test it. Take A that's been working this whole entire time
huh,
and put the pedal to the metal, and then maybe take a little bit of B at one time and a little bit of C to see what it is that was really getting it for you, right?
right,
Because it's not always all the time. Yeah, I mentioned before, 20 years ago, I was selling radio or more, and I never thought that Google search would be something that if I were doing that today would be part of really the big thing. Back in 2012, it was retargeting, they called it, right?
mhm,
When they started really doing digital ads in that way. And I remembered the Target story. So I was still I think I was just leaving radio at this point back in like 2012. It was like in my last year. And they, I learned of the Target story. Have you ever heard this? Okay.
r-
So like
okay,
I don't know if I've ever talked about this before on this, but on Built This Way. So Guy goes into Target really peeved. I'm just paraphrasing at the manager, because why? You would think that the manager could do anything about ads, right? But, he's complaining like, my daughter's getting stuff that he shouldn't be. And the manager's like, we're really sorry. I'll figure it out. He gets a hold of the marketing company that gets a hold of like their ad agency, and they pull whatever ads or whatever. And by the way, Target, please don't sue me for saying this. I don't want to get in trouble, but it's a cool story. So if it's not you guys, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure this is it. They pull everything. And the guy is like, he calls him a month or so later and says, you're, really sorry, word back that you shouldn't be getting anything weird, to your daughter's phone. And he said, don't worry about it. She's pregnant. And this girl was probably about 14, 13, and that. So, by weird prox, like whatever, the marketing was able to identify that this person was searching for certain things, like my period's off or whatever it was that she was searching at the time. And all of a sudden ads for things about pregnancy and whatever were coming to her. And all of a sudden I was obsessed with digital marketing. Here I am selling, what was called terrestrial radio at the time. And like, I don't even know if all of it was digitalized. Like I had been doing this for a while. This is how actually Patrick and I met, because this is what we did back in the day. And I was so excited to be creepy, not like creepy, like, oh, we're going to be in your house sort of thing. But, when I was selling that, it's like, yes, we sell these puffs of air that are out there that people hear. And then at the end of the day, you get a notarized invoice that says the ads that you're running are actually going to run, and we think that they did. And like, please pay me, because now my job is to chase you down for all that. That was like the job. So then it went from like, hey, we're not only going to know when your ads are going to run, we're going to be able to control it. And they did what was called geofencing, and they still do that. And so I got into that in a big way. And I took all my radio client advertising dollars and they moved over into like digital stuff. And that just kind of became my thing. When I left and I worked I went to a chamber of commerce, used that skill there. And then when I worked for a congressman, of course I used digital marketing and targeting there, because like politics, like I don't want to go into that. Sorry, I'm so excited to talk about this, but that's why I like it now. At least most of what we do is trackable. And I can say, this is working. Let's change it. Let's try another ad. Let's stop it. Let's add more. You know what I mean? Like, whereas before it was, is that piece being seen? Is that thing being heard? Now we still use those. You still need those in certain extents. I have clients today that still do radio campaigns. Not a lot of them.
Yeah. But
because I'm like, it's your community. You know what I mean? But it's a different dynamic,
right,
depending on what your goal is.
You make a great point. With digital, we can do what's called A/B testing. So if your audience is familiar with A/B testing is, I'm going to write 3 different versions of an ad or 4 different versions of an ad. Let's say 4. I'm going to have 4 different versions of an ad. I'm going to have 2 different landing pages that I'm driving those ads to. And then I'm going to have some fun. Then I'm going to see, okay, I have a theory. I think of the 4, the second one's the best one, but I could be wrong. I'm going to play with that. And then as I see which ad performs the best, the other ones get knocked down. We focus on that ad. And then, I've got my 2 landing pages. Which landing page converts? A landing page, if you guys aren't familiar, landing page is I run an ad and I draw them to this special website page that is very focused on getting you to make a decision, right? There's not a lot of superfluous stuff. You can't read the about me. There's none of that. There really is maybe a quick video. There's some bullet points. And then it's all about you making a binary decision. Are you going to opt in or are you not going to opt in? Whatever that opt is going to be, whether it's a purchase or downloading a PDF or whatever that's going to be. So I get to play with that. And realistically, going back and doing print ads, I don't get to do A/B testing. I put together an ad. I hope it's good. I hope it hits the mark, or a billboard on the side of a freeway. Yeah. And I hope it works. But with A/B testing, with digital, you can play as much as you want. And the funny thing is, often you'll find, let's say I have an ad that works. It's great. I ran 6 different versions. This is my number one. I'll watch it drop off over a period of time. And then I'll need to replace it with something else. So it worked for 60, 90 days, and then it lost its juice for whatever reason. May not be your ad. Yeah, people see it. The market changes, needs change. Maybe we're going into a holiday season. Things change and you need to do something else to bring it back up again. But you
Love
can't
that.
do that with a billboard.
I love that you just brought up A/B testing too. And I love that you talked about it. I'm going to call landing pages decision pages
Yeah.
because that's a really great way to explain that. I bet you have really good analogies for things.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I learned early on when I started doing landing pages that like, 'cause it's like I want, oh, let's do it about me. Let's do like, no, no, no. You are focusing them in. Are you in? Are you out? That is basically what a landing page is asking you at that point. And you're doing it in a style that is influential, that is exciting that person, that is speaking in a
Yep.
language they like. But yeah, you're all about making them to make a decision. It is not a website experience.
Well, and you're just figuring out if your messaging is not just hitting the mark, but if it's actually the correct messaging, or if your audience is the correct audience,
Right.
or if the actual call to action is the correct call to action. I mean, it could be
Right.
something so small that's messing up a campaign that it's
Totally.
unreal, you know? Maybe somebody doesn't want to book now when they
Yeah.
click, for example. They actually do want to learn more, or they don't
Right.
want to call.
Right.
And if you click that, so there's a lot to that. I like that.
And that's why we have sales funnels, right? That's why we have these funnels to start out with, moving them from being anonymous to, okay, I'm going to download this thing, to, oh, I'm interested. And to your point, sometimes they're not ready to buy. So sometimes I need to nurture them longer, and I need to have these kind of elaborate loop of, they came down to here, but they stopped there. They go back up. They become what's called an MQL, a marketing qualified lead. They are willing to let me market to them. They're willing to let me send them emails. They're willing to, try to romance them, but they're not ready to buy. They're not an SQL. Yeah.
You're dating them. You're still dating them.
Right. Right.
You
Exactly.
know? You can't just get married out the gate unless you're on some show. I mean, I watched some of them shows. I don't know about the one that we get married at first sight. I don't watch that one. But, I brought up into some other shows before. Garbage television binged on. I'll just
It's,
admit it.
it's funny you bring up dating, because when I'm talking to people about their social media, those who do need it, not the engineering firm, the social
Mm,
media, I try to use the analogy of dating. I said, you want your social media to be interesting.
mhm,
I said, if you're just talking about yourself, imagine being on a date with someone who just talks about themselves. Like
great.
it's not interesting. There's no engagement. There's nothing going on. So in terms of, you certainly want to talk about your product, your service, but they don't want that to be the only thing you talk about on your social media.
I don't post on my own social media right now. I don't want to talk about me. I get tired of things. And
Yeah.
I know this is so like, who says that when that's what they do? But I didn't feel like I had a lot of great things, specifically marketing wise, to discuss because I was so in it that my plan or my strategy for the winter was just getting through it and staying operational. I mean, just real talk. I wasn't worried about growing the business when I was trying to back off on the business.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm able to do things like this today. Fortunately, that hasn't like that. It didn't hurt. You know what I mean in that regard. And I am a better person for it. And that gave me some clarity. And that's why I wanted to have discussions about this because these are the things that I talk about until I am sick of talking about them. And I don't ever get sick of talking about them, but I get sick of repeating myself. Because what was wrong when I said it the first time or the 12th time? Come on, man. And, I'm now just getting good at making things people's ideas. And if they want to come back with me, like, you know what, we need a plan and we need to sit down, we need to come up with this and all that. And I'll be like, already got it done. Here you go. It's been sitting here this whole time. We've been waiting. What's changed? But I'm very big on checkups, monthly checkups, as many checkups as we can. If a client wants to meet with me, I do it because at the end of the day, their business is literally in a constant, I don't even have an analogy, roller coaster, I guess,
Mm.
especially when you're in a lot of them are up north. So they're experiencing like below freezing weather. And whether you're in construction or like everything's changing,
Mhm.
and they all still have Google ads and social media presence and videos coming in and Google posts. And there's all sorts of movement that are happening, even when a lot of their businesses aren't. They're still doing estimates. They're still getting customers. Roofers are still roofing. Surprisingly, not when it's like coming down hard and stuff, but when there's days where there's no snow, they'll go out there,
Yeah, that's
which is wild to me. At least I don't have to do that. My
well,
God.
yeah, a lot of especially a lot of these construction, a lot of these construction related jobs. Yeah, as soon as the thaw breaks, right, they're out there. And so they have to. You're right. They have to be planning and estimating now so that they have the schedules put together. So when that first day where it's warm enough to get out there, they know exactly where they're going.
Yep. All my guys are sending me videos right now, and ladies too, but mostly because they're in the business about how to do job cost, and not specifically for them how to do it, but how they do it or what to
Mhm.
expect when they show up, and some about jobs or anything that's more face forward that they can present, because I can't get that from them spring and summer and fall. And we've been doing this for a while. And so now there's a trend. It's like, okay, December is really, really busy. January is when it happens. And it's awesome. So it's like, all right, so that like this is the season of reels, right? And they last all year long. But so if you're listening and you're in your any business right now and you're in a downtime, you can plan your stuff. You can actually, see, you can actually bulk produce your content, right? In any like, it's just all at once. Record 4 or 5 things at one time. It doesn't have to all go out now. You were gonna say something, go
There's
ahead.
yeah, there's an old saying I've always loved, and I think I've put it out on my feed a couple of times, and it says, "When the fishermen cannot fish, they repair the nets."
Hmm,
And so that's very much how I view businesses. Like you said, when you're running fast on sales and things are just banging, you don't have time. But when all of a sudden things slow down, okay, now we get into again market research, we get into planning, we get into building up stuff so that we are ready, so that all that stuff is just like you said, just push the button and it goes.
and then technology makes it so much easier,
Yeah.
thank God.
Mm.
Someone asked me the other day, a client, and they were worried about the use of AI, and I was like, "I think it's fantastic. You just have to use it as a tool for information and education. You can't use it to replace what you're doing in your thought process, right?"
Mhm.
So if I don't know a lot about someone's business, I'm happy to look at AI and do research and check and have it send me the links and whatnot. But in our business, when people start to use it to do their content specifically, it's like, don't, because now you're just making it like it's gonna. Don't make it a thing that's okay for everyone else.
Yeah. Should we talk about AI? You want to talk about AI?
I love it. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So AI is a wonderful structural tool. It is amazing at supporting. If you're using it to actually do the work for you, you're asking for trouble
Yep.
because it is designed the way it kind of is. It's generative AI, right? Where actually it's bringing together data. It is the vanilla latte of answers to your problems. If you're looking to
Mhm.
differentiate yourself as a business, it doesn't know how. If you're looking for emotional intelligence, it doesn't have any. It again can give you some great supporting things, but think of it not as artificial intelligence, but augmented intelligence, and it's augmenting your intelligence. So I love using it with clients. I use it myself,
Mhm.
but I will do fun things with it. So I will say, okay, I want to see 4 ad campaigns for this specific product line. Give me 4 different angles on it and I'll look at the 4 angles. But then I'm sitting there, I am judging. I like that from that. I like that from that. I like this other piece over here. Let's bring those together. Then I still end up editing it anyways. But it's a structural support tool for me. If you are, I did a blog on this. AI, if you're using it to write your stuff for you, that it can potentially be the downfall of the lazy.
Yeah.
And we've seen this. We've seen people just like, okay, spit it out. We're done. And it's just a start.
I like it for organizing my notes, or my thoughts. After a meeting, I will just dump, "This is everything that we just said, da, da, da," and it has all these chats or whatever, and I'm like, "Can you make it pretty so I can send my client back notes?" Because I'm typing the way that I talk. I'm not
Mhm.
putting expletives in there, but I do. Not what I mean to make it more professional, and for that I appreciate it. It's like to me that replaces just having an assistant to help you with that sort of thing. If it's that sort of stuff, I love it for. It's a nightmare for things like content calendars.
Mm.
I would not use it, if you're coming up with a plan to come up with like but if you're actually looking for posts, don't come up with your posts and copy and paste them. Because one,
Yeah.
other people see it, and we're forgetting that our actual platforms are also AI. They know
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
not you. So they know the difference between authentic and non-authentic. And if you want to test it, then do that test yourself.
Right.
You
Right. Yeah.
know,
It's
do
it's
it to improve it, start it off, change it, make it your own.
it's gotten a I have a private AI. I don't know if people know about this. If you have a subscription account, you can actually set up your AI so it doesn't share your information with the rest of the
Mhm.
community. And in doing that, you can actually train it a little bit more. So I would say in doing that, because I've fed it articles I've written, I've fed that stuff to it. So here, this is how I speak. This is how I
Yep.
talk. This is how I. So
Smart.
when I get drafts back from it, they're closer. They're still not me, right? They're I would say versus what I was getting in the beginning when I first had my free account. I was like, okay, this sounds nothing like me. I would say it moved it up a good 30-40% closer by educating it on this is how I speak, this is the way I explain ideas. And so it's gotten a lot better at it. But to your point, it's still not it's nowhere near across the finish line.
No, and it's scary. I don't necessarily know if I want it to get across the finish line. I have not put my photo in and had it change my image yet. All I know it's, my picture's all over social media, so like it has your fingerprint or your thumbprint of
Right.
things.
Mhm.
But that just freaks me out. I've done it for people because they've asked me to. But I'm like, I don't want you to have like I don't want to give you permission to change my likeness. You know what I mean? But I also know that when you use it, and that's not actually true, because when you use a Lensa or any sort of filter, isn't that AI, right? It's helping change it. I don't want to. I haven't done like the caricatures or having like someone is like they had the candy stripe thing where it was like I don't know, where all the women were in the same sparkly whatever with the Christmas candy, and I saw the same damn photo portrait all over the place during Christmas. And not that I say I didn't want to, guys. I couldn't do it. I'm selling my soul to Meta if I do this, and I just can't, or chat or whatever. But it's because I'm, small, trying to preserve a little bit of me. But in case the machines are listening, I love you. And I'm always very polite to my AI. And I say thank you. And if they decide to come around like Terminator, guess what? They're going to be like, she's cool. Leave her alone. She can live. And then they'll pass by us.
You haven't gotten in a fight with your AI yet when it was wrong about something?
I've told it things, but my biggest thing with it is certain times of the day, it logs up, even when it's a paid program. And I was like, I thought making this premium was going to change my world, and it didn't change shit, Seth. It didn't change a goddamn thing. I still have to wait, just like everybody else. You click the thing that says, "Oh, faster response." I'm like, things. But I feel better that I'm actually like as intelligent or smarter than sometimes my AI, because it gets things like dates wrong. At least I know what day it is. It's Tuesday, right?
It is. It is Tuesday. Yeah,
See?
I love the term. For those who are not in the know, I think most people know this. When an AI malfunctions, they call it a hallucination, which I'm just endlessly amused by the
Really?
fact they call it. Yeah, it's called a hallucination. Yeah.
Oh, me too. I've had several lately since my hysterectomy. We'll just call them all hallucinations.
Yeah.
I don't remember a thing. I cannot be responsible for what comes out of my mouth. That's why I didn't record. I didn't want to listen to it later and just have all sorts of regret. It was not in the plan. You're a lot of fun. I want to talk about why this stuff matters, though, in collaboration between two people with two different lenses. I mean, when I look at you, we have a lot of similarities, but we come from different backgrounds. We're in two different parts of the country. We love dogs. And if you're listening, you don't love dogs, man. What is wrong with you? I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
I don't know if you
The
saw it.
best beings on the planet.
Did you see her early? I don't know if you can you tell when my arm goes down like this that I'm petting the dog that she's coming by. I don't know
No.
if a couple of times she came by just to
Mine
say
usually will
hi.
knock my arm and is like, hey, why are you not paying attention to me? He's being pretty respectful today.
So let's talk about collaboration. Yeah, good topic. It's interesting because we talk about bringing together diverse groups of people. And often I hear the play on that. Why are we doing diverse groups of people in the room? Why are we doing it? Oh, it's nice. It's a nice thing to do. And I'm like, that's not why I do it. I do it because you make better decisions. Because when you bring diverse individuals with diverse backgrounds and mindsets. You get to really do that tug of war on an idea, on a strategy, on a program that yields good information. I don't care about it being nice. I don't. I'm sorry. It's, it's politically correct. I don't care. I care about making good decisions. And with a broader group of people with a dissenting opinion, you make better decisions. That's why we do it, right? That's why
Amen.
go ahead.
No, I just said amen.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So it's, yes. And as a matter of fact, I remember seeing, gosh, at one point in my career, we actually had like a seminar on how to do proper meetings, in terms of, having an agenda properly. And one of the things they talked about is having someone designated as the dissenting opinion in a discussion to avoid groupthink, right? Groupthink is when you get all these heads nodding together,
Mhm.
often all around a bad idea because nobody's willing to stick their head up.
Funny you just brought that up. I was just thinking about that when you're saying that.
Well,
We're supposed to have
there's a
dissenting opinions, Seth. Come on.
yeah, exactly. There's a wonderful old movie, black and white film with Henry Fonda called 12 Angry Men, which is about a jury trial and a dissenting opinion and how they all kind of gang up on him because it's a murder trial and he doesn't believe that the guy who's being accused of murder did it. And it's really, and you're watching, I've got a psych background, you're watching the group dynamics in effect, like, well, why do you believe that? Help me, I'll explain to you again why we think this guy is guilty. And so even in meetings, having that person designated, this is their job, is to say, to be that dissenting opinion. If I don't have a dissenting opinion in a room, I will often say at the end of, if I'm presenting, because, I'm in charge, I'm supposed to know what's going on. What did I get wrong? How can this get screwed up? Based on what we've laid out here, what could go wrong with this? What did I forget? And it opens up that discussion around that. So yeah, you want diverse people in the room and you want dissenting opinions in a thoughtful way, that yes and way, right? Versus, well, this is all awful. Okay, well, great. Well, it's awful, but how do we fix it? What can we do to make it better? Not just dissenting for the sake of dissent, but for the sake of this is how we should think about this, or these are other alternatives we should look at.
Because talking about something and being that 12th person is uncomfortable, right? You could know that there's like a fire in the other room, but everybody's like, no, everything's on. Literally, it's on fire, you guys. And be like, no, it's fine because the head guy said it was fine, or the second guy said it was fine, and I don't want to like piss this guy off because of my career or whatever. And it goes down the map. But the problem is that you don't identify the issues, like you were saying, and it just continues to be, and it becomes an even bigger problem.
Yeah.
So how do you sit down and put together a plan to actually correct something if you're not going to identify it? It's usually the bravest son of a bitch in the room that says it, or the saltiest or whatever, because they're the person dealing with it or whatever. But yeah, there's always, in almost every situation, something like that. So any business that you're in, organization that you're in, and I'm not even just thinking of my own or clients. I mean, there's so many different other situations where people have not wanted to listen because it was uncomfortable.
Right. You really need to honor that dissenting opinion. There was a study they did several years
That
ago.
in World War Z. You see that movie I'm talking about?
I did, actually, yeah. Oh, wait,
Yeah,
can you see? No, you can't see my board. It's too far away. Never mind.
I can see that there was like lines.
There were
But
lines, but
yeah,
they don't show up.
when he went to
So,
Jerusalem, the guy was talking about how he was the sixth man.
yeah. Yeah, yes, that is in World War Z. I remember that. Okay, so here's the
Zombie
study.
movie. Awesome.
This was several years ago. So you walk into a room, and what you don't know is everybody else there is an actor. They're Confederates. Everybody else is an actor. You're the only real person in the room. That you sit down, and there are 3 lines on this board, and one of them is significantly shorter than the other one, right? Than the other 2. 3 lines, one significantly shorter. And they start going around the room, and all the actors say, well, these lines are equal in length. Every last one of them says, and the first time they get to you, you go, well, no, I think the one in the middle is a little shorter, actually. And they go, okay. Well, let's go around again. Maybe you need a little more time with this. And by the second or third time they go around, you're saying, oh, yeah, all the lines are equal. Oh, yeah. So that is that group, right? That is that group dynamic taking hold on you. Oh, yeah, no, I'm going to conform here. They're all equal. And it's clearly that one of the lines is shorter than the other ones. So yeah, yes, per World War Z and poor 12 Angry Men, we're hitting our movie references today.
I love it.
having these dissenting opinions and having somebody, right, because you planned for, in World War Z, it was about planning for a contingency. Like somebody, they had planned around a what if scenario, and they'd honored
Mhm.
that. So they were ready when the zombie attack happened. It's
Yeah,
just,
that's
it's in a
big.
similar vein. Hmm?
Not only did you just figure that movie out for me, which is watch it again. My mom was just like, but yeah, what a great analogy of why you need fucking strategy, people. To our first point.
And you need to beat it up, and you need to not get attached to it. That's the other thing is people get,
Yeah.
you mentioned the term earlier, people who love their baby too much, right? You can't love your
Mhm.
baby too much because it's
Things
going to
gonna
do what it's going to.
change.
Yeah, it's going to change. Things are going to change. The environment's going to change. That is the one thing we can say with great certainty is that things will change.
Wanted to like kind of get us back on track a little bit because,
Sure.
trash cans and zombies is always good
Okay.
times. On Built This Way. We come from, different backgrounds, right? And we're very like in diverse, right? And at the same time, we've collaborated before. We're doing it here again. And even though we've before looked at through things through semi-different lenses, we've come to the same conclusion, basically. And the other thing I was kind of taking from all that is that strong leaders that can handle it and handle the hard truths and sit. And it's so hard to stick with the plan because you don't know if it's working. The long game is not immediate.
Mhm.
It's a long term, So you have to have a lot of what's the word? Guts, moxie, grit with you if you're a smaller business owner, and just smart and sense and resources if you're a large organization to be able to accept that challenge and invite that challenge in and face those challenges head on. Because it's very difficult when you're in it or you're running your business and you're trying to operate and keep staff going and lights on and all those other things that are incredibly stressful and distracting to sit there and plan out to 5 years out.
Mm.
And if I
It,
say that to clients, they could shit themselves because they can't imagine looking at something 2 years out. And I'm like, we can plan a year in a day. Let's talk about where you actually want to be in a couple years.
mm.
And it's weird because a lot of us are still together 5 or more years later, and they're in different stages of their lives or their business has changed. And they've gone from, oh, I hit $1 million this year. I'm thinking of one client in particular, was one of my first ones, to the several millions of dollars they do now. And just the difference of money and perspective and budget that they have and the conversations we used to have and the conversations we have now.
Right.
It's a lot easier for me.
Yeah. It's funny because several years ago, there used to be pre-COVID, there was a lot of 5-year, you would do 3-year and 5-year planning. And COVID really kind of messed with the way companies look at planning and structures. And so we went to like 6-month planning. So
I didn't
month
know there was
planning,
this.
6-month planning, by the week planning. I try to bring people back to 6 months and 1 year, and 3-year with a bit of an outlook. 5 years almost they don't want to do it. They're not interested in it.
Nope.
It's too far out there for them.
Mhm.
But to your point, and the focus is different. When I'm looking at 3 years, I'm not looking at specific details. I'm looking at where am I looking to get to? Because then we get to
Exactly.
walk it backwards, right? We get to
Yeah,
walk it
we're gonna
backwards
change
into
it in 2
yeah,
years.
yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So, when you talk about strategy and things, let's talk about because we talked about all the things that we should be doing right, and
Mhm.
I want to someday, maybe even with you, get through what SWOT means because that's what we do in municipalities because nobody wants to look at the bad stuff. I don't
Mm.
wanna look at my threats or talk about my competition, and I don't wanna look at what makes me suck. I only wanna talk about how great I am and how I'm the best and of all the whatever, the be like, blah, 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 blah. And that what makes people sound and feel like everyone else, right? So
Right.
that's one of the things that mistakes that personally see businesses make when they wanna come up with a strategy is they don't wanna look at the hard stuff. But what about you? What do you see them make repeatedly that you would love for to help on?
There's a couple of things, and it's funny, you mentioned grit and moxie earlier, and those are absolutely important. But two others I would add to it, so a yes and, would be humility and curiosity, right? Those is what enables when I see plans go from good to great is because they have that curiosity about what could work or in conversations with clients and vendors and the humility to listen so that they're not stuck on this is my plan. I have to do this.
Yes. You have a great improv reference. Yes, and
So, in terms of the mistakes that I see clients making over and over again, I actually did a whole thing on this, the 5 fatal flaws. One of the biggest ones is not planning. They're just not. I think there is a inertia that sets in like, well, what if we plan and the plan doesn't work? Well, I can guarantee you at least part of the plan's not going to work, right? We have to adjust. That is the analogy of an aircraft traveling, from point A to point B. It's constantly adjusting to stay on course. Same thing with the company. So the number one is they're messing up on planning. Either they're doing no planning or they did a plan like 5 years ago and they haven't touched it since. Like it's
amen,
like
brother.
it's like the Constitution. It's this living document, right?
Mhm.
That nobody can touch,
But
or they're under
everything's
planning.
changed in the meantime,
Yeah,
and, and their customers are literally 5 years older
yeah,
that they
right.
were talking to before. Yeah, there's so many things.
Yeah. So that's the number one is they just don't plan properly. The other problem often is they don't budget properly. And so I'll come in and I will say, well, look, how much revenue do you do? Okay.
Mhm.
Now this is just a signpost. So some people will say, or how much you do in net sales or gross sales, excuse me. 10%. You could use the number of 10% of your gross sales should be spent on marketing. But that's a really loose number. The number realistically is anywhere from 1 to 20% is what you should be spending on marketing or what your marketing budget should be. But 1% is big, huge corporations where 1% is a big amount of money. If you're talking 20%, you're talking like maybe, a doctor's practice, something like that, where they have no sales force. And the only marketing efforts they have to get people through the door is going to be their ads and their social media and their influencers or whatever it's going to be.
People think that it's
So
all one and the same,
yeah,
too. They think marketing and advertising dollars are exactly the same.
right. S- So those are the two top ones. Is one is they're just not planning, and they're not planning in a variety of ways. And the second one is they are under budgeting them, so they're hamstringing themselves. I was I was with a client. At an event, and every now and then I get flack 'cause I'm the marketing guy, right? And
Mhm.
somebody walks up and says, we tried PR for like a month and it didn't work. And my
Oh,
client walks up and says, if you only tried it for a month, you deserve for it not to work. I didn't say a word. I just stood
word.
there. I just sit and sipped my drink. Yeah. So I get a lot of like, oh, we tried that in the past. It didn't work. We tried advertising. I'm like, well, what'd you do? Yeah, we ran an ad in the local paper. I'm like,
Oh, it doesn't mean shit to me, bro. It wasn't me. It wasn't this. Well, I get this too. If we hired a social media person before, I'm like, great, I'm not a social media person. I'm like, that's one of the things that I offer. But
right,
yeah, I mean, it's probably because they didn't have any direction or
right,
anything. I usually get hired because something's broken and they need someone that they can trust to handle all of those things at the level that they need it to be without paying the big corporation cost.
yeah,
So someday I will be at that rate and this will be outdated. But right now, that's the thing.
yeah,
But it's a it's a comfortable place to be, but that's what you said. I tried this before and it didn't work. Well, so you need to keep trying. Never stop trying.
right,
Never stop marketing. You could be marketing in one way and perhaps it's that avenue or the message or anything else. It is not about perfection. Nothing
yeah,
we do is about perfection. It's never ending. Like my job is never done. I get the feeling of satisfaction very few times. And one of those things is when I clean my house. And it's because I get to complete it. And that wasn't the word satisfaction. I meant to say completion. I don't want my husband to hear this and be like, what? That's not what I meant. Sorry about that. But the feeling of completion when you do what we do is few and far between.
yeah.
There's always
And
something to be done.
I want to be fair to the agencies out there too, because of my role and how I come in and how I'm positioned, I get to say hard things. That's part of my job, is to tell the truth.
Oh, yeah.
It's harder for the agencies because the client might look at the agency and go, well, you've got a vested interest in this, and I will lose it. I don't care if you use me or not. This is what's going on. This is what you need. You do not need that. You do not need that. You do need this other thing. And if
Yep.
you're not going to do this, you're going to really put yourself in a challenging position.
I don't get paid based off of what my clients do. So for me, I am proud of that. that
Yeah.
there's, and it's because I don't want any skin in the game or any decisions to even be viewed that they're based off of what they are able to spend or what they're spending.
Right.
So I manage it, but and it's because being in sales on the other side of that, that's what would happen. And they wanted to get those things in because they were getting a cut. And no disrespect, it works for them. That's great. I just with mine, it was more of I came in more of in the consulting sort of manner, and then
Yeah.
it became a retainer, I guess is a better word for it, because I don't consider myself a consultant, but you're never not consulting when you're constantly educating your clients.
If you're doing it right, you are some level of consultative selling, right? Consultative
Yeah.
selling. Otherwise, like you said, you're just like, okay, I'm going to sell you this thing that I don't think you need, and it's not going to work very well, and that's not
Mhm.
fun. You wouldn't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
I wanna be intentional with people.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the fact that I've turned away business and I've fired clients before.
Me too.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about
It's hard
firing
to turn away
clients.
business.
Let's talk about firing clients.
Yeah, I don't ever talk about that, but
That's
yeah.
no. Listen. I have a no a-hole rule. And so it's
Awesome.
like, yeah. So and these sometimes they're lovely people and they're lovely, but they don't want to listen. And
And they
if
yeah,
they're
there's
not coachable, if they're not coachable, I'm not going to waste their money and my time.
I had someone I'm gonna share I fired a client story, and it wasn't and I haven't done this often enough, and I love when it happens mutually or if it just happens and it's like, "Oh my god." Because when you're not when it's a struggle
Hmm.
more than it is just it's like, ugh. But, this person told me that AI told them that I was the right person to handle their marketing.
Okay.
Awesome. What a great compliment. Thank you,
Right.
ChatGPT. And then turned around and shared with me that they needed me to change in all of these different ways to be able to work with them. And I was like, "Deuce is not changing." I kindly invited them to find somebody else that fit their needs because at my age, Seth, I ain't changing. Not like it's not because I want to I just it was in my eye-opening thing that I can't allow working for myself to let other people dictate who I want to be.
Yeah.
And it really bothers me when I put things out and my clients do see them. I actually love that my client they don't mind, but when ones make comments about them, it's kind of like, but it wasn't necessarily for you either. And you think things are about you, but it has nothing to do with you. It's
Mm.
about me or my business or just education. I think that was something to do with that. But yeah, I just it felt so good.
Sometimes, and I'm not being sanctimonious, sometimes firing a client is the best thing you can do for them because
Mhm.
it's going to force them to even briefly internally look inside and go, well, okay, well, maybe who do we need? What do we want? And either they're going to change or they're going to do it internally or they're going to most likely screw up. And then they might change after that because then they'll feel pain and go, okay, well, maybe this wasn't the right way to approach this. We're back to they don't know what they don't know. And look at firing a client sometimes as a parting piece of wisdom to them.
Yeah, and at the time, if I were emotionally intelligent and able to deal with that more, I would have stepped into that and tried to help them correct it instead of just being like deuces in the kindest possible way, email fuck off smiley face. But that's not what I said. It was like da 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 da. But I like looking back, it's like, man, I could have been, a little bit. I could have dealt with that a little bit longer, and then but it still would have eventually happened. It was a good thing for everyone at the end of the day, but the relationship did not get salvaged, and that was because I was just done.
It's
There was
okay.
no big blow up or thing. It was just like, "No, this isn't gonna work."
No, I had a client who at one point I had to tell her it was a very mature business, very mature industry. Said because and there was a lot of frankly negativity coming from her, and I said, look, I can fix a lot of things, but you don't love your own brand, and I can't fix that. And I said, I'm sorry, this is not
No.
this And she just, I mean, she acknowledged it, because she was tired. And I think they shut down a few years later. But
Damn,
yeah, but she didn't like she didn't love her own brand. She didn't like it.
that's so
She was just kind of like, it was grinding for her. And I'm like, okay, that's not good.
yeah, and you can't want more for someone's business than they want for themselves.
Right.
And you can't, and or care more about their business than they care about it at that time. You just have to, because it drags you down as
Yeah.
a professional.
Yeah.
And you
I mean,
want results, and you want to put your energy into those other people that really want your help.
right. Right. I could have taken the money. Not for me. Not for me. At the end, at the end of the day, it was the right thing for her and me. Right. It wasn't just about me getting away. It was, she needed to hear that, because right, that's time to think about a career change on her side. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a lot of things that are very similar. One of the things that are different is that you've got a lot of degrees, bro. Like, I was looking at your bio and you're like, yeah, you're legit. Like, yeah, I'm so happy that, we agreed on what we were talking about today. And then it wasn't like, she's dumb. That guy's super smart. Um, I was looking at your bio and you've got degree in psychology. You minored in, was it law? You went to the University of SoCal. Was it
Mhm.
marketing? There's a lot. You have a lot of expertise in education,
Mhm.
and now on top of your marketing firm, doing a new coaching firm as well.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. That's fun. So yeah, I got degrees. Thank God I had parents who were willing to fund my educational desires. I did. I got a BA in psychology, and then I got a master's in international studies, and I specialized in international business and international law. And
Wow, I didn't
it's
even
kind of
mention that.
funny. Up until COVID, they were sitting like in the bottom of a drawer somewhere. And during COVID, I kind of like redid my office in my home office. And I'm like, I should probably frame those. I should do something
Somebody
with them.
paid
Like
you a lot of money for that.
they had been sitting. They're like, here,
Yeah.
so I bought frames and put them up. But yeah, so as I've gotten more and more into this fractional CMO role, I found myself doing more mentoring and coaching to people in these companies. And I should drop back a little bit. Even long before college, long before any of this stuff, I was teaching swimming to little kids. Then I was a military cadet. Then I was studying martial arts and teaching martial arts when I was in school. And I got into personal training. Again, these were like side jobs when I was in college. And so, as I'm talking to people, I'm seeing, guys who are just strung out, they're burned out, they're not sleeping. And so I started bringing more of my other stuff into it. And I'm still doing the fractional CMO stuff, but all of a sudden I realized I'm doing this other track, which is working with them on a mentoring and coaching basis, really bringing in, sure, the business and the leadership stuff, but also the mindfulness stuff. I'm a big fan of meditating. Um, some level of fitness,
Um,
some level of social connection, whether that's with your spouse or with the community. At the end of the day, you don't want to be, put in the ground and they say, well, she did a great job of getting that stuff done on her task list. Way to go. There's more to
it's gonna
life
be
than
on your
that.
gravestone.
Yeah.
It'll
Boy,
be
was
kind
she good at organizing.
it'll be a really organized gravestone.
Little file folders. So I started a second business, which is kind of an offshoot. Like I said, still it's Avergon Marketing Group, and then the coaching business is me just working with business folks on coaching and mentoring around business, personal life, mindfulness, fitness, a little bit of nutrition stuff in there. Yeah, it's kind of a passion for me, and I've been doing it naturally, and had enough clients ask about it. Like, maybe I should just spin this off into its own business.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love meditating. It has changed my life, as has breath work. Turns
I
out
love
I
breath
had
work.
some trauma that was, like, locked up in there. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Mm.
I met a woman in Key West, and she was like, "You need to do a session." So I did one on Zoom, thinking, like, "What's that gonna do?" Right when I got back. Oh my god. And then found an app, and then every once in a while, I'll go in, and when I do it on a daily basis, I notice the difference in myself.
Mm-hmm.
But when I don't, shit gets a little haywire sometimes, and then I wonder because I'm not taking that time to, like, recenter and breathe and all that. So, big believer in that. We also found out today that we were both cadets at one point. And yes, what was the other thing that you just said? Because you were talking about that, and then martial arts.
Yeah.
So, yep. I was a high blue, I believe, in
Would you train in?
Taekwondo and Mudaquan.
Mutual. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
Taekwondo. So it's
Yeah, I
just
want
kind
to.
of crazy. Like we have so much in common. Dogs, all that stuff.
So let's talk about meditating for a second because I want to. I'm going to get on my. I'm careful. I'm getting on my soapbox. Meditating, guys, does not mean being in a temple somewhere with candles lit and chanting. Meditating can be 2 minutes of you
Hmm.
just counting your breath or just I'm inhaling, I'm exhaling. It's literally letting yourself rest in place. Letting you, because we all have these great brains and they're wonderful little tools, but they don't shut up. So just taking a moment at being at rest, minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes if you got it, makes a big difference.
It really does. I should have done it right before this too. Is my armpits always sweat before, and then when we got started, for some reason my hands started shaking a little bit. I'm like, am I always having a stroke? I mean, that'd be weird, but no, it wasn't that. I think it was all the caffeine I consumed this morning. A lot of coffee. Like I was like, and then I put this down. I went to sit. I was like, nope, just put it back down. We don't need more of it. Cause yeah,
So you were a military cadet? I didn't know that.
yep, I don't talk about it a lot because it was not the best experience. However, I don't shy away from it either. It's more of just part of who created Patricia.
Mm,
You know,
mm.
and who I am today. I was talking with a friend about this the other day, and all of the things in our lives, whether they be good or bad or just hard, you know, um, this is why I'm doing the show. Like it all can't be for nothing. So at some point, I will dive into that one a little bit more. But yeah, 1,000% just gratitude for anybody that does serve and makes it through and can finish. My good friend that I was just talking to with actually the other day, an excellent career in the army.
Mm.
And yeah, and it helped him very well. And now he's an excellent career in the corporate world too. So yeah, a lot of respect. But lots of things in common, Zach. This was so fun. Would you come back sometime?
Yeah. I want to pick up on one thing before we go. I love your perspective on difficult things, by the way, because I had a friend and mentor, and I went through something very, very challenging back in 2023. Very challenging, really spirit breaking. And he said, as I was going through this, he said, and I didn't get it at the time, he said, when this is over, I want you to be grateful for the whole thing. I want you to be grateful for the whole thing because of the transformation it's brought about in you. And I didn't get it until I got to the end of it, where I go, okay, I
It's
get it now.
always you can never see it while you're going through it, and when
Yeah,
people say it to you, you're like, "This is such bullshit.
yeah,
This is hard. Don't tell me that," you know? But then afterwards, you're like, "Damn, okay, here I am. I'm a lot better for it."
yeah. Here I am. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of something where I'm like, "Nope, that wasn't better for it," you know? I audit from the IRS. That's the one thing I'm not better for. But yeah, like it may be out of that hardness there was some growth, but out of every really hard thing, there has been growth at least.
Yeah.
And I'm not the same woman that I was when people met me 10 years ago, 20 years ago, hell, 5 years ago. You know, it just all changes us. So,
Yeah. Right.
yeah, we just got deep. With that being said, I hope you come back. And Seth, where can we find you? Like, where can I find you've got two sites, right? Tell me where can I
Yeah.
find and I'm gonna link all of it, but like your websites would be great.
Oh, yeah, sure. So I'm the only Seth Avergon on LinkedIn, so that's easy. But
I'm the only professional.
Avergon Marketing Group is avergonmarketing.com. So Avergon, as in November, avergonmarketing.com. And then SethAvergon.com is not up yet. That's the
Yeah,
mentoring site. We're doing some changes on it right now. So that'll be
that's
up
gonna be so
probably in the
crazy.
next 30 days. It's going to
That's
be
so much
fun.
better than mine. Mine's like so long. It's like Pmon and Associates, and it's all like spelled out. And I've got the other ones, but the only one I've ever marketed was the long one. I'm just so opposite to what I should tell people to do. Anyways, you should follow him because just even on his business page, you do get to see Bella. He has plenty of pictures of her on
Yeah.
his
No.
page too. And you get to learn about his personality as well, not just marketing things. And if you're looking for someone to have some of those conversations with, or even perhaps someone to coach you when it comes to your mindfulness and coach, oh, there she is now. Fine, Seth Avergon, my buddy, brother from another mother. It was so awesome to talk to you today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.